Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for returning to my channel, Wonder of Faith. Once again, I'm Anthony Bush, and today we're moving right along to talk about the philosophical system that is the Wondrous Orders. So I gave an introduction last time, and today I want to just start the book and go piece by piece until we complete it all, and hopefully we'll have about 30 to 40 videos then. But today I'm going to focus on the first two sections, which are the preface and the introduction of the book itself. And usually, when you read, you might skip the preface or intro, but I think it's important because they set the book up to explain its purpose and how it came about, its thought process, my thought process in forming the book and writing it. So, the preface is where we're going to start. And the whole point of it is it explains why the Wondrous Orders are considered a rule of life. Firstly, a rule of life in the conventional sense is a group of rules or a group of directives written usually historically by saints or by founders of religious organizations within the church. They write directives so that a religious community can be successful as it goes forward. It talks about how brothers or sisters in communion of Christ treat each other, what their duties are, how they should pray together, how they should work together. And it also gives what we call a charism, which is a focus of the religious group. For instance, the Benedictine charism would be work and pray, ora et labora in Latin. The Dominicans would focus on preaching and knowledge as a means to find Christ and more deeply know Him. And each religious order has a charism, whether it's related to education or serving the community. Each one focuses on a specific aspect of Christian and human life. And through that focus, they become closer to God individually and as a community. And they provide a great service for the faith, for the church. Without them, it would be hard for, I would think, the Christian tradition to be the same today as it was at its beginning. They're truly the foundation of the Christian faith in that they're the prayer factories, they're the labor factories, and it's all done willingly, no forcing upon them at all. But the rule of life itself is important because it provides focus, it provides guidance as to one is to continue in their faith journey, in their prayer journey, toward God, toward salvation, and toward heaven. And so, going off of that, I wrote the Wondrous Orders as a rule of life. Here it is once again. It says it, an inspiring rule of faith here. And I wrote it to be like a rule of life, but instead it's for the lay faithful. Those of us who live lives in the world and have families or have work responsibilities, because the majority of the Catholic Church is lay, is the lay faithful. And we have the clergy and we have the religious, and we could not have the church without them because they're truly great servants of God and have been called into that path. But as the laity, we have to bridge the gap between the world and the church, because sometimes people forget that they are two separate things. They may overlap in certain regards, but they are two separate worlds that we have to bridge between it. It can be difficult at times. And so the Wondrous Orders seek to bring the church to the world itself, to bring holiness to everything we do and not just limit the faith to Sundays or time spent in churches. And I think the Wondrous Orders, through their different directives and ideals, make it not easier, but it gives you a place to start or a process to do so. So the preface focuses on the history of the rule of life and how the Wondrous Orders exists in that tradition to provide religious guidance and structure, not for a religious community, so to speak, but for just living a life on the day-to-day. And with that in mind, the Wondrous Orders are not a one-size-fits-all thing, not at all. What they seek to do is provide support to your faith tradition. Everyone, even as Catholics, we pledge obedience to the church and all her ideals and doctrines. But still, when it comes to living one's faith, there are different ways for everyone. Everyone has different things they focus on. For instance, one faithful member maybe has given themselves to Mary and says rosaries for the world and has a ministry in that, which is very valuable and beautiful. While another may focus more on serving the community and having their acts embody the acts of Jesus Christ and reaching out to the world. Both these things are noble, and they're both needed. But people with their personalities and the way God made them have different focuses, and that's perfectly fine. And so the Wondrous Orders does not seek to move a person away from their focus, but instead provide support to it by adding literature and advice and guidance and different ways of life that could help them in their ministry or in their mission that God has given them. So the Wondrous Orders are not in any means a one-size-fits-all. Conformity is necessary to a degree, but conformity does not automatically mean making everyone one and the same, because that's not the way God made humanity. Our human nature is to be unique and unlike any other soul He has created, and that's the beauty of being human and being a creation of God. So moving on from the preface is the introduction. And the introduction might be daunting because it provides terms that are used in the Wondrous Orders, which I think are necessary, because if the Wondrous Orders are truly meant to help people to find God and to come closer to Him culturally and through the daily living of life, then it's necessary to have its own language in a sense and to have its own ideas so that the Wondrous Orders can be better understood. So in the intro, I set up a group of terms that are going to be used throughout the book, and they're always there for reference, but they're important because they, in their own way, they kind of give a look into what the orders stand for and kind of what to expect before beginning the actual orders themselves. So I'm going to go through those terms now. All right, I got it. So the first word is a behold. Behold, in the conventional sense, of course, is a verb that means to be awestruck or to just be with something in the moment. But in this sense, a behold is almost like a preamble or a constitution of instance. So it says here, a section of a particular part of the orders that seeks to introduce or act as a preamble to the greater topic. So behold, I use in the sense that to begin a topic, we must behold it first and take it in and understand what we mean by grace or suffering or beauty. All these things require an explanation before we dive into how they affect us. So the behold, the whole orders themselves have a behold section, which is the preamble and like the promise to live them out as best as you can. But then each other section has what we call the constitutions, which come after the orders themselves, has a behold section or a beginning where we seek to find the beauty of something or the fullness of something before explaining it and adapting it to our own lives. So the second term is a constitution. Constitutions within the orders make up the majority of the book itself. The way the book is structured is you have 4 orders. One for heart, doctrine, passion, and wisdom, the 4 virtues we talked about last time. And after that, we have the constitutions of the orders. And these are 51 different applications of the virtues to aspects of life, whether it be a daily action or a piece of literature or a directive of instance. They seek to provide support to the original virtues and apply them to the daily life, for instance. So it says here, Constitution is a document that seeks to apply the virtues of faith to an urgent or relatable issue or celebration. Some may seek to instruct, while others may be of a poetic or allegorical nature. A few are ritualistic in nature and seek to bring a celebratory aspect to the living out of the orders. So you saw that it can mean many things, but they're all in one section. So, for instance, one constitution has to deal with celebrating the orders themselves, while another has to do with understanding the importance of memories and what we've gone through. So they're different subjects, different genres, but they all serve the same purpose, which is to provide support to the orders themselves and help to make life um, more closely relatable to God and His will for us. So term number 3 is doctrine. So doctrine, as we know, is one of the virtues that has to deal with obedience to the church and understanding her ideals. But also, doctrine plays a role as a subgenre of the orders. So there are 4 orders, and within those 4 orders, there are 3 doctrines. And these doctrines are more specific, but together they make up the greater ideal of the virtue. So let's say doctrine, one has to do with education, one has to do with finances, but all these things together help to bring about an understanding of doctrine as a whole, even though they deal with specific parts of one's life. So doctrine is a subset of the 4 orders. So there's 4 orders, 3 doctrines within each, so that's 12 in all together. And then after the 3 doctrines, there's the premier doctrines, which are more complex in nature and kind of pull all the gifts of the virtue together. So heart has 3 doctrines, and then after those 3, you'll have a premier doctrine that is more noble or ties in all the ideals of heart together to help someone else in their faith life, for instance. Next we have faith, which is the grace that allows one to accept the existence of God and His truths through the mind and the soul, the prime force that guides the wondrous orders. So faith is the whole subject of the orders. When we talk about heart and doctrine and passion, these are in context of faith. And so the whole point of the orders is we want to try to delve into the great gift that is faith and how we can use it to strengthen our resolve for God. Next we have heart, which is the virtue of faith that deals with love and compassion for God, others, and self. We talked about the virtues in detail last time, so it's pretty self-explanatory here as well. Order, the largest subset of the wondrous orders, in which there are 4. Each deals with one of the 4 virtues of faith. So I've kind of covered this already. So there are 4 orders, and that's why it's called the Wondrous Orders, because there's 4 that everything else kind of revolves around. Passion, the virtue of faith that deals with personal identity and the character of the wielder. Once again, pretty self-explanatory. A premier doctrine, so I touched on this already. A special section under an order that means to apply all of the aspects of a virtue to a specific mission or personal responsibility. We talked about that already. A rule, the smallest unit of organization within the wondrous orders, found under each doctrine and numbered with Roman numerals, which directs the soul in a very specific way. So within each doctrine, you'll have about 7, 8, 9, or 10 individual rules. And these help to focus ever more on the virtues themselves. It's the smallest subset of the orders. So rules are the final and the smallest. There won't be anything under them because they're the ones really doing the work. Through the rules, we find different advice and different ideals that help us to focus more on God and make our faith stronger. So the rules are the things that we're really paying attention to. Virtue, aspect of faith that aids in the perfecting of the self. The virtues of the wondrous orders include heart, doctrine, passion, and wisdom. So it's important to point out that virtue we do not mean in the primary sense or the historical sense. The virtues, faith, hope, and charity, as Aquinas pointed out, are the theological virtues. But I'm talking about virtues as a subset of just faith itself. So faith itself, I'm saying, through the philosophical system of the orders, has virtues of its own that are worth looking at. And that's what we're really dealing with when we talk about the wondrous orders. Wielder, the one who is in possession of the wondrous orders and lives by their guidance. So I picked this word wielder because it's very interesting as a word. To wield something is to not only have it in one's hand or in one's possession, but to use it and to have an instrument, make an instrument of it. So, like one wields a sword, one wields the Wondrous Orders as a weapon, not of destruction, but as a weapon to destroy evil or sin and bring one closer to the will of God. So, anytime in the book I refer to a wielder, I'm referring to someone in possession of the orders. Next, we have wisdom, the virtue of faith that deals with the discernment of the will of God and being open to personal betterment. And finally, another term, wondrous, one who lives life with the search of God's wonder at the center of their mission. So this is a word that has not existed before the orders. It's wondrous, Wonderess. And I've used this word even before the orders came about. And the way I see a wondrous is a person who explores the faith, one who is actively seeking God in everything and not being stagnant. So someone who's excited, who is actively willing to change themselves for God constantly and to become better and more perfect for Him is a wondrous. So within the context of the orders, it's the hope that that's what we become once we finish them or have adapted them into our lives. And I think after maybe 5 years, when one has become very comfortable with them, they can consider themselves a wondrous because they have successfully adapted the orders into their own life. So that ends the terms. I hope that wasn't too much for you. But they're here in the book always for reference, and as we go through the orders, I'll remind you what each one means as they come up. But I think they're important because they lay the groundwork that's necessary for the orders to do the work they need to do. And it may seem daunting, all these terms, all these technicalities, but the orders couldn't do their job if they were not organized accordingly. Order is necessary so that the gifts or the gifts of the orders can truly be understood. Because if they're just splattered here and there and there's no order or cohesion, then they're not really doing their job. So I hope that this video is helpful as a reference for you going forward as well. And I thank you so much for joining me once again. Once more, the Wondrous Orders are available on Amazon if you're interested and you want to follow along with the video series. Thank you so much for coming to my channel, Wonder of Faith, and I know together we're going to do amazing things for God. You can leave a comment below if you have any questions or comments that you want answered, and you can expect another video in a week. Thank you so much for joining me, and may God bless you.